Hello listeners from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao and all the corners of the world, and welcome to 21st Century Podcast, the show that discusses Philippine literature of the 21st century. Today, we're going to talk about a Filipino story entitled The Molave Tree and the Orchid by Francisco Sionil José, with your one and only host, myself, Owen Roldan. We'll dissect the story into different discourses and analyze it as a whole. Be sure to listen all the way through for a fun and not that boring discussion. Again, I am your host, Owen Roldan, and you are listening to 21st Century Podcast. It has been a week. Who would have thought that we would be able to have a second episode? I am so glad sharing with you again, listeners. So for today's episode, we are going to analyze the story The Molave Tree and the Orchid. Before anything else, you can sit back and relax, and let's listen to the gist of the story narrated by no other than myself. In the jungle, there was an old yet almost indestructible Molave tree who happens to be arrogant. It was known to be the strongest tree among all the other trees in the forest. No matter what circumstance, no storm can knock down the tough tree. The tree has many unwanted visitors in its branches, but still managed to throw them all away, except for the orchid. The arrogant tree kept on throwing and shaking away the parasite he called. However, the orchid refuses to be considered as a parasite. For it, every life has a purpose. It also explained what love is, but the tree didn't listen and still wants to throw the orchid off. Strongest of typhoons and extremes of drafts had arrived, but the Molave tree stood tall, unbothered. Surprisingly, the orchid is still clinging on its branches. This made the arrogant tree hate the orchid even more, but the orchid still speaks about love and purpose in life. For the first time ever, the tree listened and realized the importance of life. Same day, a few caingeros came and brought a chainsaw. The tree cringed as it felt every blade slicing through him. As the tree fell down, he heard that a part of him will be used as a coffee table, and the orchid will be placed on top of it. Now that you've heard the story of the Molave tree and the orchid, we can now easily analyze the story. So let us answer some of the questions. What is the story all about? If we are going to look at the story, it is about an immodest Molave tree who refuses to understand the value of other lives such as the orchid. Being the strongest and the most indestructible tree in the forest, he feels superior to other trees. Thus, no amount of danger scares him. However, because of the orchid, he got to realize what love is and what is the true value of life. At the end, he accepted his fate and faced his inevitable death. Who is the speaker in this story and what kind of a person she or he is? The author of the story The Molave Tree and the Orchid is Francisco Sionil José, who happens to be the speaker of the story as well. He was born on December 3, 1924 and is one of the most widely read Filipino writers in the English language. His novels and short stories depict the social underpinnings of class struggles and colonialism in Filipino society. He is a Filipino novelist, writer, and journalist who has notable works such as the Rosales Saga novels of 1962 to 1984. To whom the speaker is speaking. In my personal opinion, Francisco Sionil José is talking to every one of us to remind us that we should not look to ourselves as superior among others. We should humble ourselves and understand that all life has a purpose and meaning. So let me ask you, what is the story's central idea or theme? Basically, the theme of the story is the value of life and love, which leads us to the next question. What is the purpose of the story? In my opinion, the purpose of the story is to send a message to every one of us that we are not a master of all things. There is no reason for us to be boastful, to be arrogant, and to feel superior among others. Personally, as a student, especially a humanist, the story taught me the value of life. According to the principle of sufficient reason in philosophy, everything has a cause and a reason. We are existing for a purpose. The cat that you met on the street last day, it has a reason. The birds who come down from the eaves every morning have a purpose in life as well. This kind of thinking is coming to a place of ecocentrism in which you don't see yourself as superior over other forms of life. Humanity is not the highest form of life. We are just a part of a whole. In addition, we should not see ourselves as above or below among others because we play a different purpose. We are a network of consciousness who are living in a symbiotic society wherein we depend on each other. Briefly, the purpose of the story is to change how we see life. This story is indeed very vital to our lives. It teaches us how to value life before it's even too late. For the last time, this is a masterpiece of Francisco Sionil José, The Molave Tree and the Orchid. Finally, we are at the end of our short discourse. I hope everything is clear and don't forget to apply the lessons we have gathered from today's episode. If you have concerns, questions, or messages, just contact me via Facebook or Messenger. My ID, Roldan. Our show hotline, 9500-775358. I'm afraid I already have to say goodbye. Remember, listeners, let's stop believing that our differences make us superior or inferior to one another. I'm your favorite host, Owen, and you are listening to 21st Century Podcast.